Julieta. Welcome to our second Dignity Day. We're really excited to have you. And I think one of our main goals for today is to talk about undocumented immigrants and higher education. But first of all, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Julieta Garibay. I'm one of the co-founders of United We Dream. I'm really excited to be co-hosting this Dignity Day #2. Also, some of our co-host team is AV, Americans Voice. We Belong Together, as well as the National Domestic Workers Alliance. Dignity Days were actually formed to really highlight what's happening in our community, how we have many victories that we've actually won because of the work in the community, and how we're going to start continuing to push for more wins for our families and for our loved ones who are still undocumented. And so today, like I said, we're going to be talking about higher education and undocumented immigrants. We, of course, have an amazing panel, really exciting to have Cesar Vargas, who's going to be talking to us about law school and also as the newest undocumented lawyer. Also, Ignacia Rodriguez from NILC, who has done a lot of work in helping undocumented lawyers be able to achieve their dreams. We're also going to be talking about medical school and what does that mean and how does that look like for undocumented immigrant youth. We're also going to be talking about teachers and how undocumented immigrant youth want to become teachers and what does that path look like, as well as grad school. I know many of you out there might be thinking or might be already doing your bachelor's and thinking, what does grad school look like for me? Can I do it? How can I make it happen? And so we have, like I said, a very exciting panel, and we're going to kick it off with the law school side. So Cesar and Ignacia?
Hey everyone, thank you all so much. I'm Cesar Vargas, and I want to thank everyone, AV, United We Dream, everyone here to really put this panel together to make sure that we are providing not just the information out there, but also the actual experiences and how we got there, especially because I guess the most important thing that I really want to mention of how we got there, how I was able to get my law degree and eventually win a huge fight was because of the community support that so many people helped. So I think if there's anything that you want to take out of this whole, at least my discussion, is that definitely connect with the community, definitely connect with the student body, definitely connect with the faculties and administration that are very key to successfully navigating the process of going to higher education. So for me, I think the story really started when I graduated college. At that point, there was no DACA. I graduated in 2005, and there was no DACA. The DREAM Act, was pretty brand new. Dreamer organizations were still not as strong as they are now, and the network was pretty. It wasn't as strong as providing the information out there. So for me, deciding to go to law school was more of a decision of what my mom used to always encourage us to, right? As my mom says, sigan la educación y en la familia siempre tiene que haber un abogado or un doctor. Essentially, she was saying, her saying was, in our family there always has to be a lawyer or a doctor. So, for me that stuck to me because I saw not just the need for being a lawyer and just having a fancy title, but it was the need to be a lawyer representing your family, fighting for your community. So for me, that was a decision that I needed to look into how to apply to law school, what it took to go to law school. And it wasn't an easy process. It definitely wasn't just going about and just going to law school and say, hey, here's my application. I didn't know about the LSAT. I didn't know about the application process. For me, my family, as much as my family loved to help me, they were not familiar as well. So I had to navigate this myself, and it was pretty much a trial and error. I research online, talking to professors. You had to take the LSAT, how to pretty much study for it, and how the application process, the LSAT. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So for me, I think really going into that point of going into speaking with professors and so forth. So, going back to the point of talking to professors, it was very helpful for me not being connected to the Dreamer movement to try to get the procedure administrative points to get into law school. Once law school, the other challenge was actually going into the question of how am I going to pay for this. And for me, it was really important. Again, talking to the administration, I spoke directly to the dean and telling her, hey, this is my story. This is who I am. I want to be able to continue law school. You saw I was able to get into law school on my own, with my grades. How can you help me, and how can the community help me? Eventually, I was able to get private scholarships, applying with the help of other lawyers, telling, here, you can apply for this. But the dean was very critical in obtaining private financial aid for me that was able to pay my first, second, and third year. So I eventually graduated with no debt, which was really, really key for me. So again, really focusing and connecting with the administration when it comes to the finances. And I guess the third point is, what's next after graduating law school? For me, it was, as many of us confronted, like what to do with my undocumented status. Will I be a lawyer? Will I be a doctor? Will I be anything? And graduating law school, taking the bar exam was a tormenting experience, horrible experience, studying from 8 o'clock in the morning to 12 o'clock at night. But, we did it through the help of my mom, through the help of my family, really encouraging me. And I guess the other question was, how do I become after all that, can I become an undocumented lawyer? So we didn't know that, so we challenged the notion of what it means to be undocumented and be a professional. So we actually, along with the lawyers of Latino Justice, we were able to challenge this question of whether or not I can be admitted as a licensed lawyer in New York officially. Because for us, we didn't want to be able to just go just submit it quietly. Like for me, I really wanted to challenge this publicly and politically and legally to make sure that we were able to challenge this and allow undocumented. And on June 3rd, we were actually very successful, and we've won. The community won. New York officially allowed undocumented, not just DACA dreamers, but undocumented immigrants to practice law, and saying that undocumented status has no bearing on your ability to practice law and your commitment to your clients. However, of course, there's other question. Was actually, because of the activism that I did, I was arrested and found guilty that I trespassed at a political event for challenging Republican presidential candidates simply for questioning about immigration. That has thrown a wrench into my application process, but I have gotten the support of amazing people in New York, including the city council speaker and so many people. So I guess for me, really the key point of summarizing all this, of how to successfully navigate a profession is talking to a community, talking to professors, faculty, and most important, talking with your friends to connect you with a vast network. And I think Ignacia will be able to point a great connection to how this is significant, and those resources out there that will be able to, because we are in 2015 and those resources are available, that we have organizations and NILC have been put together to allow those resources go out there so our community can become lawyers, professionals as we can.
Thank you, Cesar, for sharing your story. You really are an inspiration to us. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to provide an overview of the laws and policies affecting the ability to get attorney licenses in different states that we know of. There are 3 cases that have looked into the issue of whether someone who's undocumented or has DACA is able to get a state attorney license. And why do these cases come up? Well, they come up because under federal law, under 8 U.S.C. Section 1621, a state is not able to provide public benefits such as professional licenses, in this context an attorney license, without the state actually passing an affirmative law saying that they will grant it to people who have, for example, DACA, or people regardless of status, which includes undocumented people. And so because of that, these cases have come up, and there's been a lot of advocacy done both at the legislative level and at the judiciary level to make sure that people are actually able to access state professional licenses such as attorney licenses. And so the 3 states that I'm going to focus on are California, New York, and Florida. So in California, we had the Sergio Garcia case. So what happened was there was AB 1024, which was an assembly bill, which provided that people who were not lawfully present in the U.S. could be admitted to practice law in the state of California. And so this bill was debated, and so finally it went up to the California Supreme Court, where it found that AB 1024 actually satisfied that federal law that I mentioned in the beginning, that this was a state saying, yes, we want to admit these type of students into becoming attorneys. And so from that led to SB 1159, which authorizes individuals who are not lawfully present to be able to get various professional and vocational licenses in the state of California. And so it's important to note that this specific change was regardless of status. So if you had DACA, if you were undocumented, you could qualify to get a professional license in the state of California, including a state attorney license. Now, in New York, Cesar just shared about his specific experience. In New York, you're allowed to get a state attorney license only if you are a lawfully present immigrant or a DACA recipient. So if you are in New York and you want to get a state attorney license, you would have to have DACA or something that makes you lawfully present in the United States. Now in Florida, the Florida Supreme Court found that undocumented individuals cannot secure a law license absent a state law saying that they can. And so in Florida, there is HB 755, which allows law licenses for otherwise eligible individuals who were brought to the U.S. as minors. And there it's very narrow. So it's someone who has work authorization, such as the work authorization you get through DACA, and someone who has lived in the U.S. for more than 10 years. And this was signed on May 5th, 2014. And there are other states that are currently considering expanding access to professional licenses. For example, right now, the state of Illinois has Illinois SB 0023. It passed the Senate, and right now it's sitting in the governor's desk waiting to be signed. If that were to be signed, that means that people who have DACA would be able to get a state attorney license in the state of Illinois. And that's why when you're considering law school as a potential prospect for your future goals, you want to consider, first of all, what are the laws and policies that are applicable to the state where you want to practice. You may have to consider other states that do provide licenses, and you have to look into what are their requirements, because this is just one requirement. There's other requirements that you have to fulfill. And you also want to talk to the school that you're thinking of applying to and seeing what are their options. Do they admit students who are undocumented or who have DACA? And I can provide more tips on the admissions process at the end if time permits, since it applies to other areas and other professional programs. But I'll defer to the rest of the group first. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Cesar and Ignacia. This is very helpful, and I'm sure people will find it very useful if they decide to go into law school. And now we want really to hear about, from Denise, who's going to be speaking about medical school. I remember as an undocumented immigrant, when I was trying to go through nursing school, it was really rough because they, of course, wanted to check my background check. They wanted papers for that. And so I know it's a hard process, but many undocumented youth have been able to do it. So we would love to hear, Denise, from you on how have you been able to make it through medical school? Denise, can you hear us? Are you on?
Yes, sorry.
Awesome, I hear you. I hear you, I hear you.
Oh, hi, I was on mute. I was trying to get off on mute. Thank you, sorry about that. My name is Denise Rojas. I am a co-founder of Pre-Health Dreamers, which is a national group where we support other undocumented students who are pursuing health and science careers. And we also do a lot of advocacy for expanding access to health careers for undocumented students, as well as access to health care. So we were really fortunate to be one of the groups that were pushing for SB 1159 that allows for undocumented communities here in California to access professional licenses, including law license, nursing, dentistry, pharmacy, medicine. Those are all under that bill that was passed. So that has significantly helped, at least here in California, the ability to pursue health professions. So first, I'll start off with my own journey and then talk a little bit about the technical details in pursuing this career. So I grew up in Fremont, which is about an hour south of San Francisco. I was born in Mexico, and I came in as an infant. So California has been my home for a long time. And growing up, like many other families, immigrant communities, I didn't have consistent access to health care. And one of the ways that I saw that was when my family members would delay care, and it was an experience that I felt set me apart from my peers. I felt like healthcare was a luxury, that it wasn't something that we were entitled to. And I was fortunate that I gained acceptance to UC Berkeley, and I attended school here for undergraduate. Um, and during my junior year of college, my mother, she was diagnosed with uterine fibroids, which are normally benign, but they were growing abnormally. So she needed a surgery, and our family, we tried to find affordable health coverage options, and eventually she was denied health care, even when she was trying to purchase it out of pocket. So that put us in a really challenging situation. My mom being ill and not being able to access coverage. Eventually, she immigrated to Canada with my father, and now they have access to universal health care in Canada, which for me is a very interesting experience, seeing how in one country you can have a universal access to health care regardless of your income level and various other factors that have traditionally limited healthcare here in the U.S. And so I'm driven to be a physician, to be able to keep families together here in the U.S. I've seen that it's how healthcare has separated families like my own, and to be able to be a role model for other Latina women, other people in my community. So those are just some of my own passions. In terms of applying to school, back when I graduated from college, I literally did not know a single person who was in the health and sciences graduate programs, and that was really discouraging. So that's why we started Pre-Health Dreamers, myself and two other friends who co-founded the group. And we've been extremely successful in being able to create awareness about access to health professions for undocumented communities. So I'll highlight the successes in the medical field. As of recently, medical schools have been opening their doors slowly, and now it's publicly available information that at least 50 medical schools will consider undocumented students. So that's a huge success. It took a lot of work from various groups and different organizations to be able to have this happen. So technically, for folks that are applying to medical school, you want to go to the AAMC website, and there's the AMSAR resource, which is the directory of medical schools. It costs $22 to purchase. And within that directory of medical schools, you can actually look if they will consider Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals DACA recipients. So that's publicly available information. Now, the biggest chance, the biggest hardship right now is, I would say, is not knowing what schools to apply to, but it's financing that education. And so a few strategies that I used when I was applying to medical schools was applying to mostly private schools, and I only applied to public schools here in California. And I tried to find private schools that had endowments or large donors that contribute to the school. So something me and my friends joked about is, if the school is named after some fancy guy, that means they probably have a lot of money. Like a lot of the East Coast schools, like Weill Cornell, Icahn School of Medicine, they're named after these really fancy donors. So I thankfully I gained acceptance to a few schools, and I'll be starting Mount Sinai, Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York, and I received a very generous need-based financial aid, as well as a merit-based aid that will cover about 80% of all of my expenses for medical school. And last, I just wanted to quickly share is that for residency, I would say for medicine, it's not so important looking at the state licenses, because medical school, you don't get licensed in medical school. You actually don't get your physician's license until you complete your residency program. And so so that's when you want to look at which states will consider undocumented students for medical licenses, is when you're applying to residency programs, not for medical school. And very similar, medical licensing varies state by state. There's a few states that do you can get access to, and all the rest, it's sort of in the gray area. So hopefully by the time folks are in that stage, there'll be a lot more clarity.
Great. Thank you so much, Denise, for sharing your experience, and I'm sure also these tools will be useful for people who want to become doctors. Thank you so much, and thank you for your courage to move forward and actually fight for your dream. Now we're going to go with Carolina, who's going to be speaking to us about graduate school. I think graduate school is also another challenge. There is the GRE, the LSAT, and depending on what program and what kind of program you want to do. So we'll kick it off with Carolina Valdivia to talk about graduate school.
Thank you, Julieta. I think Susana is going to go ahead and talk first, so I'll follow right after.
Sure. So my name is Susana Munoz, and I'm an assistant professor at Colorado State University, and I was previously at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, so I've been researching undocumented students for the last 8 years, and particularly focusing on undergraduate experiences. And so I recently looked at some graduate student and graduate student experiences, and so what we're finding is that this whole notion of why did they recruit me if they aren't going to support me? And so support looks very different from different lenses. And so it could be financial support, but also the social cultural support that is needed. So through mental health services, and also institutions are in general not up to par in supporting and retaining undocumented students. There's of course different states that have those resource centers, that provide those retention services. So, in general, when we look at the national landscape of graduate students in general trying to seek higher education, so we don't have a lot of data in terms of a national data set that we can use to see what are the major challenges and barriers for graduate students, so let alone undocumented students. And so a lot of what we've been finding is that access looks very different. If you're looking at students that want to go into higher education and work in colleges and universities, they can do so for DACA. So just to give you an example, Carolina's sister, Diana, is a student affairs professional at UC Merced, and she is actually one of the very few undocumented college administrators that we have that are wanting to work on college campuses. But what we're also finding is that institutional responses has been slow. And so what I've been hearing is that a few institutions from the Big Ten area, and I would actually keep my eye on University of Michigan in fall to see that they've revamped their graduate application to include undocumented students. And so this is really important because this allowing to designate that they're undocumented is for funding purposes. So depending on the kind of fellowships that are available for undocumented students, depending on the kind of assistantships that they are available, undocumented students will be able to qualify for that. So revamping the application process, that's something that institutions are looking at doing, and it's slow in coming. And so I think it's important to see someone like a Berkeley or a University of Michigan kind of sort of set and pioneer sort of the steps for other institutions. And the last thing that I'll mention is sort of going back to the sort of the access, and it's more than tuition. So how graduate students are socialized is that they have to attend conferences, they have to present, they have to publish, they have to sort of be immersed in their academic careers, and that's more than tuition. And for my doctoral program, I took out loans for all the other expenses that my tuition didn't cover for. So I had that luxury, and then documented students don't have that luxury. So looking beyond the access, looking beyond tuition, and looking at the holistic of what beyond tuition, what is it, what kind of resources do undocumented students need? And that's something that institutions should be looking at first and foremost. And I'm going to pass it on to Carolina to have her talk a little bit about her experiences in graduate school.
Thank you, Susanna. I think a lot of what I'm going to talk about now is going to echo a lot of what you have all said, because so much of it resonated with me. But first, a little bit about myself. So my name is Carolina, like you've all mentioned. I am an undocumented student. I will be starting my second year at Harvard University in their PhD in education program this coming fall semester. The way that I sort of came to graduate school and a PhD program now, it's been a long time coming. I think if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I don't think that I would have told you like, oh, I think I'm going to see myself at Harvard in 10 years from now. If anything, it's taken a lot of professors, a lot of undocumented students, a lot of allies, a lot of strangers, even community members who just supported me along the way. And so one of the things that stuck with me was when Cesar was talking about it really being a community effort to get to where we are. Because when I first started thinking about what I wanted to do in the future, it was thanks to one of my professors at the time, who was sort of asking me like, okay, what are you thinking about in terms of your career? And for me at the time, I was in my third year of undergrad at Cal State San Marcos, and I sort of didn't really quite know yet. But I did. So she was like, okay, what are you sort of interested in? So I was like, I know that I'm really passionate and interested in research as a way to use it to the benefit of our communities. So, for example, researching issues that are affecting our communities like deportation, enforcement, immigration policies, in-state tuition, access to education, all these different issues. I knew that I wanted to use research in a helpful way, and even policy as well. And I also knew that I wanted to continue helping students in whatever way that I could, and in the many ways that I've been helped by different professors and fellow undocumented students. And so once I started plugging in, connecting the dots, then that's when she's like, well, have you ever considered graduate school? And then that's when I started doing my research in for graduate school. At the time, I didn't really quite know other undocumented students who were in graduate school programs. And so I think one of the things that I was encouraged to do is just to start doing research on the different graduate programs that were available, both in California and also out of state. In California, one of the things that benefited me was the fact that I could qualify for in-state tuition, and then also for state financial aid, at least for my last semester in graduate school when I was pursuing my master's at the time. And so that was really helpful because at the time when I applied for my master's first, I did get accepted to an out-of-state school at Loyola University in Chicago, but there was no way that I could be able to afford their tuition at the time. And so for me, I really had to look at the different options and think of what was feasible for me at that time. And I did end up going to San Diego State for my master's, and then from there I applied to my PhD. So one of the things I guess in my journey that I've learned is to definitely not be afraid to ask for help. I think that the more that people knew about my story, about my journey, about my passion, about what it is that I want to contribute to my community and other communities as well, is that the more people could help me either financially, emotionally, whether it was just to listen to me vent or listen to me and then find somebody else who was in graduate school, things like that. It's always been really helpful. And so I think for me that was key, because when I first started college, I was at a time when like we didn't really talk about our immigration status, and I think the activism by undocumented youth was just sort of starting to pick up, and so I wasn't really as open about talking about my status. But I think that's changing now, and so I would definitely encourage undocumented students to sort of come out to professors, to students, to whoever it is that you do feel comfortable talking to, and sharing your own immigration status and your challenges and the limitations that you're sort of foreseeing, to definitely come share your story and ask them for questions, contact admissions, contact different programs. Again, just not be afraid to ask for help and for questions.
Thank you so much, Carolina. This is some great information. I think you all gave amazing tips. We're going to go to some questions from the audience or from the people that are here listening to us. So we'll start with Spencer Shrugs. Could you all share some narrative about the campus climates and culture you have faced in your studies? So anyone can answer that one?
Well, I guess I can just quickly mention that, there's definitely, like any organization, any entity, especially any, yeah, there's always definitely different perspectives and different opinions. I remember when I first publicly came out as undocumented in law school, there was incredible support, right, from many of my professors. All my professors were very supportive. The student body was really greatly supportive. However, there was definitely some questions about, I guess sometimes like about immigration and the politics of immigration and whether was it fair. So I think overall it was a very it never got personal to the point that it was like, well, Caesar should never be here. But it definitely raised really good important questions about policy, about politics, about how is the immigration system gonna work? Is it broken? How broken it is. So I think it definitely created amongst the student body that type of conversation. So it was healthy debate. But overall, I would say that there was incredible support from people who didn't know, and they were like, wow, I can't believe this issue is really affecting as close to my friends. So it was really a great response from the student body overall.
Great, thank you, Cesar. I remember also while I was in nursing school, they would actually ask me, well, why do you even want to go to school if you can't practice? And so now it's exciting to know that at UT they actually have a whole support system from the administration saying we welcome undocumented immigrant youth. We'll go to the next question. This question is from Marco. How is the process to apply to Ivy League universities with DACA? Does anybody know that answer?
I can gladly take that on. And so with DACA, it's important to understand that DACA is still relatively new. It's only been around since 2012. And so sometimes when you inquire about applying with DACA to different schools, the person you're speaking to may have no idea what you're talking about. And so it's important for you to understand, what does DACA entail? It entails having a social security number, it entails having a work permit, and finding resources, including NILC's website. ILRC is also a great website, and UWD to find out specifics on what is DACA to present to these faculty members. And that way they can better understand whether or not they can expand their policies to include people with DACA. But keep in mind that it's still new, so you may have to do a lot of advocacy to make sure that the administration and faculty members of your school that you're interested in know exactly what DACA is.
I can add a little bit to that. In my experience, a lot of private schools will sort of consider undocumented students similarly to international students. So I would say if there's a school that is particularly friendly to international students, I would say chances are they might also have room to accept and provide financial support to undocumented students. And that's because international students also, a lot of them may or may not have social security numbers, work permits, aren't eligible for federal financial aid. So for myself, Mount Sinai, they do accept international students, so that was a good sign I knew when I was applying to that school. And I know a lot of the Ivy League schools do consider international students, so that could be a way to even just test the ground before you make a phone call.
Great. Thank you so much, Denise and Cesar. That's really great information, and Ignacia as well. That's great information. I want to remind also our viewers that you'll be able to actually watch this whole recording in case you want to share with other friends of the entire broadcast. We're going to be sharing it later on, as well as if you have any questions, you can also follow up via email. So now we're coming to the end of our amazing Dignity Days webinar. I wanted to ask each of our participants to share some last words of how this has changed your life with higher education. And yeah, if we can start. I mean, Cesar, if you want to start with us.
Yeah, for me, I think repeating what I mentioned before is that a lot of the success that we have seen around over the past few years is because of so many people got us where we were. It's the community, the professors, the faculty, the administration who encouraged us, and most important, the amazing advocates who pushed the boundaries of the law of where we are now. Many of us are pioneers of this. Julieta, and all of us here have been, working on this since a long time ago. So for me, it's definitely to show that the community got us where we were. It wasn't just one individually. It just wasn't one person or politician that got us where we are. It's all of us that got there. So that's something for me that I would definitely, emphasize and as we move forward.
Caro, would you like to share?
Yeah, of course. I think for me, really quickly, it's also been a very exciting journey to know that I'm not alone and that there are other undocumented students who want to pursue graduate school or who want to pursue a law degree or a medical degree. I think it's great for us to remind ourselves that we're not alone and that things are changing, thankfully.
I want to say something that has been incredibly helpful for me is just to surround myself with people who are positive, and believe in me. I mean, they don't have to be, people in school. It could be having, really good friends that are going to be there when time gets rough, because there's a lot of roller coasters, whether it's, taking the GRE, the LSAT, the MCAT, and then applying and then getting rejected, and you've got a lot of roller coasters. But I would say having a strong community that just empowers you and uplifts you, and you can hang out on the weekends and relax. And I would say that's what's really made me be able to succeed is having that community that believes in me.
Thank you, Denise. Ignacio?
Sure. I just want to remind people to definitely not lose hope. I mean, I personally applied to law school when I was undocumented, and it was thanks to the support I received from Luis Perez and other undocumented students that had already gone to law school. It was thanks to their support that I knew how to navigate the system and knew what to do. And also at the time in 2009 when I applied to law school, I had friends interested in med school, and it just didn't seem like a possibility at the time. But now, in fact, we do see people that are able to make it, including Denise and Carol Montes. And so it's really inspiring to see all these experiences and these dreams actually becoming reality, so it's important to not lose hope. We're also going to share a list of resources so that way you can connect with GRAD and Pre-Health Dreamers and the Dream Bar Association, and that way you too can interact one-on-one with people that are making it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you to all the panelists. You all have been amazing. It's great to hear of all the amazing work that you have done. Thank you for reminding us that our community is always the one who has helped us made it through. It takes literally an entire undocumented community to make us succeed. I think one of the other ones is not to be afraid to share your story, to tell people what's happening in your life, because many times they'll be able to help you. And also the last one I think that someone highlighted was the importance of coming out and telling them I am undocumented. These are my goals. These are my dreams. How are you going to throw down with me to make our community better? So I just want to thank everybody for being in this amazing webinar. If you have questions, feel free to email us at info@americansvoice.org. Also, I wanted to do a quick shout out. I almost forgot one of our most amazing hosts and also a partner, kind of like a partner in crime with us, has been Neil, the National Immigration Law Center. So thank you so much. But that's it. Thank you all so much. And thanks for the Dignity Day. Yes, Denise, go ahead.
There's going to be a conference at UC Merced on August 1st, and it is open to all undocumented students who want to pursue graduate school. It's being co-hosted by various groups at UC Merced and graduates reaching for Dream Deferred. So if you can just find our website, Pre-Health Dreamers, and we posted information about there, or grad, GRADD. If you find them on Facebook, you can find more information.
Great. Thank you, y'all. See you next time for Dignity Days.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.